right, GM. This is Metacell coming to you from Melbourne, Australia. Today we have the man himself, James Hanley, the head of product at Sanctum. He looks after the LSTs and he gets the job done from Singapore to Australia, and he's got a very big background in the corporate world. James is going to be talking about LSTs at Sanctum. James, go ahead. The floor is yours. Tell the audience what you want them to know about LSTs and what they are and why they should be holding some.
Hi everyone, my name's James. I work at Sanctum. I was hoping this could be a little bit more of maybe a discussion or a workshop where we can do a bit of back and forth. I can answer questions and those sorts of things. Maybe a show of hands or a reaction here could be helpful for me to gauge the audience. Who here is familiar with liquid staking tokens on Solana? If you can just give me a reaction. 1, 2, 3, Darren, 4. Okay. Maybe Ron and Quant's not so sure. Okay, so that means there's the baseline concept of what a liquid staking token is on Solana. So who here has also heard about Sanctum? Who's familiar with Sanctum? Yeah. Quant with a shock reaction. Maybe that's a no. Maybe Quant is not familiar with Sanctum LSTs and Sanctum. And that's okay. What I'll do then is I might do a brief overview of what Sanctum is. And then I might jump in and talk about INF. INF is Sanctum's flagship product, and that's what I'm responsible for looking after at Sanctum. So I'm very excited to talk about INF because basically all I think about. Got heaps to share there. If I could just ask one more question, actually, before I jump in, can I get a sense of what people are actually doing in the ecosystem? Do you guys work in crypto or are you more, so maybe if you work in crypto, can you give me a reaction? If not, I'll assume that you're more like an observer or a passive participant. Darren, okay, interesting. Creating a project, very cool. So there's a possibility here that you might be able to use some of Sanctum's products in your application, whatever it is that you're building. That actually changes what I'm going to talk about. Let me just get some slides up and then we'll kick off. Sal, while I'm doing that, did you want to ask any questions or anything while I'm getting the slides up here?
I'll talk about the ANZ Sol LST. About 3 to 4 months ago, I was in Vietnam and I spoke to the Sanctum guys and I told them that we'd love to do an LST for Solana in Australia to help us pay some of the bills. And we worked out a model which was very good because what we can do, if you were here earlier, I was talking about how we could hook the projects on Solana and they could buy some of the or hold some of the ANZ Sol, and the APY that they get comes to us, right? So the 6-7%, whatever you get, and that over volume, over time, would be enough to pay some of our Twitter bills, hosting bills, some advertising material like banners and things. And we were able to do that with Flash Trade. Flash Trade is very generous, and they gave, I think, 250 Solana. They hold the Solana, we get the APY, and that APY is enough to pay some stuff. And obviously, the more projects we can get on board, the more LST we have, and the bigger things we can do, like parties and...
Awesome. I've got the slides ready to go. So appreciate your patience, everyone. Sorry about the little delay there. I accidentally closed out of them just as the presentation kicked off. Okay, so I'm going to give a little brief background on Sanctum, give a little bit of context about Sanctum that you may or may not be familiar with. And then I'm keen to talk to you all about 2 products in particular, one of which is INF and the other of which is called Gateway, which I think might be relevant to some people who are here. All right. Can everyone see? Sal, are my slides showing here? Yep, fantastic. Okay, so picture this. It's 2021 and there's 3 guys sitting in a room and they're basically debugging some code. They're working on the original stake pool program for Solana Labs. So in 2021, 3 guys sitting here working on this program together. They're building some dashboards and they're doing all of this work, which is basically foundational to what will be used in the future. And this is early, right? This is 2021, early 2021. So it's before everything that's happened. And so one of these guys, his name is FP, and you might be familiar with that name. And he basically stops and thinks to himself, in the future, based on what he's been working on, he imagines this future with 3 core predictions. Number 1, he thinks to himself that there's going to be this huge Solana economy in the future, and there's going to be heaps of people using this network, like hundreds of thousands or millions of people using this every single day. The second thing he predicts is because of this, there's going to be a lot of liquid staking tokens on that network. And he concludes this because he's been writing the stake pool program and he understands how it works. And then finally, he basically predicts that because of all of these things that will play out, there's going to be heaps of LSTs everywhere on Solana, like different branded LSTs for the biggest protocols on the network. Sure enough, later that year, FP went on to found Sanctum with his co-founders. If you think about those three predictions, all three of those have come true in a tremendous fashion since FP dreamt this up in 2021, which is fantastic. And largely a lot of the reason why those predictions have come true is because of what Sanctum have gone on to build themselves. So after FP worked on that stake pool program with Solana Labs, he went on to try and build some of this stuff which he'd envisioned, because he realized that the Solana Foundation or labs wouldn't do it themselves. Someone had to create a company to do it for the benefit of the whole network. That's how Sanctum was born. Who am I? This is me. You can find me on Twitter. I talk a lot about Sanctum. Sal mentioned that I have a background in corporates. I was actually working at KPMG for 7 years, whilst moonlighting in crypto for 4 or 5 years before the moonlighting reached critical mass. And I had a lot of opportunities to go and do stuff in the ecosystem. I decided to join the Solana ecosystem a bit over a year ago because I was just the most excited about it. And there's just the most going on there. It was just like, why would I choose anywhere else? Much to the dismay of my ETH bags from the prior market cycle. So yeah, what I do at Sanctum is I look after INF. So INF is actually our flagship product. It has around 1.6 million SOL staked inside of INF. And it also provides a critical piece to the Solana liquidity infrastructure for other liquid staking tokens. So what is Sanctum, right? I haven't really answered that. I've told you a bit of a story about where it came from, but I haven't really said what it is. So today, and this might be out of date because I made these slides a couple of weeks ago for KBW when I presented there, and also the Token 2049 event. Probably different numbers here now that the big market crash happened over the weekend. But basically, Sanctum is around top 4 protocols on Solana in terms of size, and around 20th, somewhere in the top 20 of all of crypto in terms of TVL, not market cap. And most importantly, Sanctum is a key infrastructure provider in the Solana ecosystem, specifically focused on liquid staking. But more recently, which I'll touch on a bit later, Sanctum's actually now building infrastructure in the transaction part of the stack. So not just blocks and yield, but now actually like landing transactions. So very interesting for the builders on the call. So what do we do? Basically, how we think about what we do is we help our partners to make money. Like Sal was talking about earlier, he has this liquid staking token called ANZ Sol, and basically it allows him to basically monetize Sol. But we think about this more specifically, rather than just helping our partners to make money, we actually think it's about helping our partners to grow their Sol specifically. And so that's what we do. And how we do that is with liquid staking. Sanctum is the only white label liquid staking token provider on Solana. So there are thousands of liquid staking tokens on Solana, as per FP's original vision in 2021. A good chunk of those are all managed and operated and issued by Sanctum. What's really great about that is we actually allow our partners to earn and grow the ecosystem, grow their brand with their own distribution of their own LST, which earns revenue for them, whilst their holders, their customers, also earn revenue at the same time. A good example of this is actually Drift, DSOL. So they have one of the largest liquid staking tokens that Sanctum actually powers. And it's really good for them because Solana is a stake-weighted quality of service network. So in theory, the bigger stake that Drift can attract, the better, more reliable service they can actually offer their customers, their users of Drift. That's the theory of it. But also, their customers who hold Drift can actually use it as collateral on their platform. And I actually used to work at Drift before Sanctum, so I know a lot about this. Basically, it's good for their customers. Their customers are earning APY, the yield from the LST, at the exact same time as Drift is also earning some revenue as part of that. And Sanctum is earning a very small percentage of that as well. It's like a win for everyone. But you can see here we have other partners, right? Obviously, it's not just Drift. There's literally hundreds. MoonPay is a recent one. DeFi Dev Corp is one of the biggest digital asset treasuries on the market, Solana DATs, and we power their liquid staking token, which is core to driving their LST strategy for maximizing their SOL per share of their DAT. Jupiter is actually the largest. And you can see the numbers here. I made these slides maybe a few weeks ago, so they might be out of date. But basically, Jupe Sol has around 6 million staked in it, massive. Bybit Sol is another one of our partners, over 2 million Sol stake. Drift Sol, around 2 mil stake. So in total, our 3 largest partners, it's over 9 million with our LSTs. So it's really good for us, it's really good for them, and it's a win-win for us and our partners and their customers. All right, Ari is asking BNSol. So BNSol is actually not a Sanctum LST. So Binance actually manage and have permissioned everything about BNSol themselves. Everything in Solana, for those builders on the call, you'd know, it's all open source code, right? So Binance decided, and I'm not privy to why they made this decision, but they decided to run BNSol themselves and spin it up themselves. And so, yeah, a non-Sanctum LST is BNSol. Part of the reason you can probably see is it's also a lower APY. Again, maybe if it were a Sanctum LST, it'd be more performant and have a higher APY. 6 months ago, Anatoly, founder of Solana, he retweets this. And it's a tweet from Brian of Jito. And he's basically showing this chart, which is showing the amount of liquid staking tokens as a percentage of the network is literally just going up and to the right. So in the 2 years, it basically 5 to 6x'd from 2% to 13. And that was 6 months ago. Like, it's a very big increase. So that's from May of 2023 to May of 2025. Big jump. But since then, since May to September, when I prepped these slides last month, it's actually jumped even higher. So now the total amount of liquid staking tokens on Solana has gone from 13% in May to 14.5% in September. And it's probably higher today. The growth is just unbelievable, the growth of liquid staking tokens on the Solana network. Just looking back at this chart, you can actually see here that Sanctum's TVL looks very closely matching and tracking this TVL growth of liquid staking tokens. So you can see there's definitely a parallel here. And that is that Sanctum is dominating the LST market. Basically, LST growth is up and to the right. One of the success stories for that is INF. Yeah, Infinity, this is our flagship product, which I'm responsible for now that I've joined Sanctum. Basically what Infinity is, it's actually quite interesting. I drew this whiteboard maybe 18 months ago before I joined Sanctum. This was to explain what INF was, because I came across Sanctum well before the TGE, before people were paying attention to it. I was trying to understand everything about Sanctum, and it captured my imagination. I thought it was amazing. And this was one of the first whiteboards that I did in the Solana ecosystem, explaining to people what it is. So it's amazing that nearly 2 years later, I'm actually using this to explain what INF is, now representing Sanctum. INF is our flagship product. And what's interesting about it is it looks like a liquid staking token. It has an APY, it has a bunch of staked SOL inside it, and it basically grows and compounds SOL over time. And the rules which govern INF are almost identical to an LST. So you can think of INF like an LST of LSTs. It's like a meta LST. It's like a basket of liquid staking tokens with some extra juice. And what's cool about INF is it gets the weighted average of all the liquid staking tokens inside it, plus it gets this extra benefit. And what that extra benefit is, basically, because it's a basket of LSTs, Jupiter and other swap aggregators, it actually allows anyone to swap LSTs inside INF. And why that is because LSTs on Solana are fungible. They're basically under the hood. They're just stake accounts that are staked. And if there's certain boundaries on this, but basically they can be treated as one-to-one with each other. And so anyone can come along, deposit their LST into INF, and withdraw SOL that's unstaked from INF if they need liquidity, or they can deposit their LST and withdraw another LST like JupSol or INF. And every time this swapping activity happens, it actually earns a very small fee. And that small fee doesn't go to Sanctum, it actually goes back into this INF pool, which is why INF has actually been the most performant, the best place to grow SOL on Solana for the past sort of 6 months. And I can show some charts to show just how much it has outperformed ordinary LSTs, because it has this sort of boosted APY element that any other LST can't replicate. So yeah, that's like TLDR and INF. Basically, it has this extra bit on top, which is what this diagram's showing, as I've just explained. And you can see here, this is our Q2 performance of INF versus JitoSol. It's basically outperformed around 15 to 20% on a relative basis. Now that's Q2. Q3 has just ticked over, and Q3, the performance was similar. It was like dramatic outperformance in terms of APY. So yeah, best place to grow SOL is INF. So with Sanctum, because of all this infrastructure that we've built, we basically provide extra liquidity to the market. And because of the Infinity pool, which I just talked about, any LST can basically be swapped and routed through, which basically means that all liquid staking tokens can share liquidity with each other. And if you want to do a big JupSol swap, 30,000 JupSol, you can get huge slippage without Sanctum. But with Sanctum Infinity, when it's topped up, the slippage is negligible, under 1%. So yeah, it's Infinity, and Sanctum provides a really important liquidity service to the entire LST market. And because of Sanctum, it's why so many LSTs can actually exist on Solana. So basically, like the bigger Sanctum's partner TVL gets, the deeper liquidity we can offer, and it creates this positive flywheel. So it's a really good story, really good for our partners, really good for us, and really good for the network because we get all these competitive LSTs competing with each other to offer really interesting things to their customers. So basically, our business has three core components in terms of what we're serving. We have liquid staking, which I just talked about. We also have staking as a service. Then finally, we have Gateway. And Gateway is the thing that's probably interesting to some people here. Our business is like up and to the right. This is our Q2 results, but our Q3 report came out last week. I actually wrote and published that report on behalf of Sanctum. If you're interested in seeing how Sanctum's business is growing, you can check out our quarterly reports. I'm really proud and happy to see that they come to life. And basically, all of our fundamentals are extremely strong. All of our business units are growing because there's so much demand for this, which is fantastic. Important to us is doing things the right way. We got 40 out of 40 on Blockworks token transparency audit. That was an objective thing that they audited us against, and we got maximum marks for that, which was really great. We do these quarterly reports to show what's going on. We do a lot of transparency stuff. Finally, we had a controversial at the time, but we believe principally was the right thing to do, token launch. No exchange fees paid, non-financial contributions rewarded for people who contributed to Sanctum to help them. And so now become what it is today. Key takeaway for this call, and then I might talk a bit about Gateway and some other things. Basically, right now, digital asset treasuries are the thing. There are so many DATs, and they need help maximizing their SOL per share for their customers, right? Because they're basically issuing equity shares on a stock exchange, taking that to go and buy SOL. Well, in order for that to work, they need to grow the SOL that they're accumulating. And so obviously a fantastic way to do that is Sanctum. We help them grow that with liquid staking tokens and with staking infrastructure underneath. If you're here and you're a DAT, then and you want to maximize your SOL per share, or if you're a protocol and you want your own branded LST, or perhaps you're a builder here and you're thinking about like transaction landing and building your application, then basically like my ask to you is after this, when you think staking or transactions on Solana, think Sanctum. Yeah, that's my presentation there. I've covered a lot of ground. I teased Gateway, but I didn't actually talk about it in this presentation. So if you'd like, I can talk a little bit about Gateway now, or I'm happy to talk about Infinity or anything else.
What is Gateway? So then people can ask questions about it. Is it an API? Is it a developer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So let me do this. This might be a little bit small because the monitor resolution is pretty high. Give me one sec. So basically 6 months ago, more than 6 months ago, sorry, Sanctum acquired a company called Ironforge. And Ironforge was basically like developer tooling for transactions on Solana. So a lot of projects on Solana actually used Ironforge. It was like open source software and it was like a public good. So Sanctum acquired Ironforge and brought that team in-house to build this product called Gateway. So basically right now, if you're building an application on Solana, you either sign up with an RPC provider and then you're basically like committed to them. And that can have all sorts of problems. Like the RPC provider might have issues, there might be performance problems. The way that this currently works on Solana, and I'm not a developer, so I'm speaking a little bit based on what I understand about this product internally, as opposed to viscerally understanding it as a developer myself, is that there's a lack of observability of transactions on Solana. So when you build something, you actually don't know how many of the transactions are landed, how many are missing. You basically don't have a view under the hood of what's actually going on when people are using your application. So Gateway was developed to solve this problem. In the same way that Jupiter Swap is an aggregator, Gateway is actually an aggregator for RPCs, transactions, and sender services on Solana. So basically, it's like this aggregator that you as a developer team who's building an app on Solana, you can actually use to see the flow of transactions. You can choose which RPCs you want to use. And there's all sorts of other functionality and features of Gateway, which make it useful for developers on the network. And so what's really cool about it is it's basically like solving a core problem that currently, like a pain point for a lot of developers in the ecosystem, which is I can't see what's going on and I'm locked into one provider and I don't know if they're doing a good job or not. And I don't know if my customers are having issues and I find out after the fact. So what's really cool about Gateway is one of the features that it has in development is this like fanning out. So let's say you're Jupiter or Drift or like some large protocol and you've got a heap of transactions coming through. It's really important that those transactions actually land when in a very timely manner. So what Gateway can actually do is it can allow you as a developer team to fan out those transactions to a bunch of RPCs at once. And then basically you only pay for the one that actually successfully does it first. It's a way to dramatically improve the reliability of the transaction landing by aggregating all these different sources and letting them compete with one another for your transaction on the network. Yeah, really cool. I am not technical enough to explain the ins and outs for the developers on the call who want to understand how it works. But if you are interested, I could definitely introduce you to the team that are looking after and building Gateway. So yeah, if anyone's interested, do let me know. And yeah, can definitely link you with the right people. So what's interesting about Gateway here as well is it's a new vertical for Sanctum. So Sanctum has done staking, and now Gateway is getting into an entirely new vertical. And why this came about is one of our biggest customers actually asked us to build this for them. They had this problem and no one had solved it. And they're like, hey, we trust you guys. Can you build this for us? Gateway right now has 2 of the largest protocols on Solana in closed beta using Gateway. And so we're making some iterations and tweaks to Gateway to make it even better for our customers. I'm sure many other protocols on Solana will adopt it as we go into mainnet launch and have everything available to broader protocol teams. But right now, we've just kept it small to 2 of the largest. And then, yeah, we'll look to expand Gateway as time goes on. Okay, so that's it about Gateway. How can we contact you? That's a really good question. So probably the easiest way to contact me would be on Twitter. So my Twitter handle is, let me just grab that for you. Really small. I might just zoom it in here so you can see. That's my Twitter handle there. You can find me there. Maybe I'll drop a link in the chat. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, you can just shoot me a DM on Twitter, and happy to connect you with whoever or whatever you need help with. How does Sanctum build on Gateway? What's the minimum requirements? Can you talk about? So I apologize for missing all the questions in the chat and the comments. How does Sanctum build on Gateway? Basically, Gateway is our product. We use it for some of our own things internally, but we're also letting our customers use it to optimize their own transaction sending for their own protocols. So yeah, that's Gateway. Quant says, what's the minimum requirements to start an LST? So that's a really good question. Basically, because we at Sanctum have been doing LSTs for so long, basically that's our bread and butter, right? So it's really quick for us to spin up liquid staking tokens. And the cost to spin up is relatively low for us because we've got it down to a bit of a science, I should say. But in order to mitigate like the Sybil problem, we have to have some barrier to entry. What would be important if you want to launch and issue your own LST is you would actually inquire through our website. So we actually have a form on our website, and it's going to be somewhere in staking. There's going to be a form somewhere, an application form for an LST. We recently changed our website. It must be on the main landing page. When you fill out that inquiry form, it basically has all the information about what you need to set up and what the requirements are. The TLDR for that is you'd fill out the form. We would set up a group chat to understand the circumstance. Are you doing it? What do you need? Why are you setting it up? How do you want to use it? What are the parameters that you need? And then we'd basically spin that up for you if you met the criteria. Some of that criteria is like how much stake are you actually providing to seed it to get it going? So for example, are you trying to set up an LST with 0? Or do you want to seed it with hundreds of thousands? How are you seeding the LST? And then number 2 is going to be like, what's your distribution model? So how do you plan to grow the LST? Because for us at Sanctum, we are actually like a white label LST provider for our partners. So DriftSol, JukeSol, blah, blah, blah. We can't necessarily do the distribution for Drift or Jupiter or any other and promote their LST for them, because then we're not really like neutral, and then we're making JukeSol compete with DriftSol, and then it's, so we have to remain neutral, right? So for us, what matters is that you have your own plans to actually grow your own LST with your own distribution channels. How are you going to acquire customers, and are you going to grow it? Because yeah, we can't do that on behalf of our partners. Can you talk about cloud tokenomics? So yeah, what I can say, Ari, is, so like tokens are really interesting, and tokens are a product in and of themselves. And really what people care about is the token price going up or down. But there's a really important problem that tokens have, right? Tokens are treated by people as pseudo equity, right? It's like I'm buying a share of something in the same way that equity gives you certain rights. But the problem is tokens don't give you any rights. Equity ownership, you basically get the future facet of this big thing, or in the worst case scenario, if this big thing dies, you have claimed the skeleton of this deceased thing and all the assets left on the balance sheet, less the liabilities. That's what your equity gives you claim to. And so like equity kind of means something in TradFi, but tokens don't have those same guarantees, which is a problem. And so what I think that does is it means that people's behavior gets oriented more and more toward the short term, like shorter and shorter. If you've seen the euthanasia coaster, it's exactly like this principle. If you've seen this image, you'll know that this is what's happening in crypto and everywhere. This death spiral, shorter and shorter time horizons. But that kind of creates this negative feedback loop, like the coaster describes, where it orients people's priorities towards shorter and shorter time horizons. And we're very aware of that at Sanctum. We really dislike that because we are maximally oriented toward the longest time horizons possible. We're always trying to orient ourselves toward the future and go against the grain and trying to do things correctly. Whilst we haven't solved the legal problem, because it's a crypto-wide problem, it's not a Sanctum-specific problem. A token doesn't give you any sort of guarantees. We are 100% focused on growing the fundamentals of the business because we believe that in time, Sanctum will be incredibly valuable. Eventually, all the legal stuff, the regulatory things, all of that will resolve in time if we stay focused primarily on orienting ourselves toward the longer term, not falling for the trap of these shorter term games, token pumponomics, all this kind of nonsense. We're completely like ignoring all of that. One of the things that investors really like in crypto is revenue share. Why do they like it? Because it's something that gives some level of assurance to token holders. But I am personally of the view, and I know that FP, the CEO, is also of this view, which he's expressed publicly, that revenue share is a short-term strategy that is not necessarily in the longer-term interest of the protocol. Like a tech startup doesn't issue dividends. Why do they not issue dividends? Because they're basically giving away that runway and that growth potential to appease investors in the short term. Now, a bank that's 50 years old that has very limited growth upside is very happy to give dividends to keep its customers happy and to keep share prices high so that, the executives can get better options, bonuses at the end of the year, blah, 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 blah. It would be a massive waste of capital for Sanctum to be giving away its protocol runway right now when all of the fundamental metrics are literally up and to the right in order to basically like appease short-term shareholders, token holders, quote unquote, who are more interested in this like euthanasia death coaster. In short, Sanctum cloud tokenomics do not expect a revenue share anytime soon. It could happen in the future, likely will happen in the longer term future, but right now it doesn't make any sense. In terms of other guarantees, cannot guarantee anything. What we are 100% focused on is making the products better and growing the fundamentals of the business, like exponentially up and to the right, which is exactly what all of our fundamentals look like right now. I mentioned at the beginning of this, we actually started publishing these quarterly reports, and this is like my initiative at Sanctum. I actually wrote this with help from the team, obviously. And so we're publishing these quarterly reports every single quarter. So here's the Q3 one, which we published last week. And so you can find this on our website. You can subscribe to get future ones, but you can basically see there's a letter from the CEO at the beginning. We have the executive summary with all the headline stats. You can see all the growth of everything, all the revenue figures by product line, the Q-on-Q results. Then we have detailed product recaps for each. So this is the LST staking business here. Then we have Infinity, and this is my thing, talked a bit about this, what's going on with Infinity, showing the outperformance of Infinity versus MSOL, GTOSOL, and other LSTs. And then Gateway, Cloud, so the token, you can read about that, Ari, in here if you'd like. And then what's coming, so what are we focused on next? So what you have to look forward to if you're a big fan of Sanctum and you're supporting the mission. Yeah, and how to get in touch with us, obviously, as well. Sanctum is also hiring at the moment. So if anyone's very excited to work for an amazing team and you've got the right skills to fit what we're hiring for, then yeah, definitely apply. We've got a job board link in the report here. Okay, so that's cloud tokenomics. I went on a bit of a soapbox there. So Nissan, for Hackaroo Coliseum builders, should we think LSTs now or as part of the what's next part of our pitches when we do our hackathon demo pitch? That's a question for Sal, not me. LST is a way to utilize capital.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's good to see Aussies winning internationally and contributing to the massive protocols on Solana. Congratulations to you, and keep up the good work at Sanctum and doing Australia proud.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate everyone jumping on, asking questions. I'm just going to put a link to my Twitter profile again in the chat. So if you want to connect, chat about anything, if you need help with anything, just shoot me a message. Happy to help.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm sure a couple of guys in here would be interested in a job as well. So I don't know if you have any information about what roles are there, but I can obviously intro them to the team later.
Yeah, so I would jump on the Sanctum quarterly, like that I published just a minute ago. Go to the quarterly, scroll to the bottom. You can see like we're hiring, and there's a link to our job board in there. I don't have the link handy at the moment, but you can find it there if you want it. And then you can see all the roles we're currently hiring for, and there'll be information on how to get in contact and what the best way to do that is. Obviously, it has to be a good fit. Sanctum is a very small team. So right now we're actually only 16 people and we have 3 billion in TVL, and it's just crazy. It's such a good group. It's such a successful company and team. The future is so bright for us. We're so excited and energized about all of our products. So yeah, if you want to be part of a cracking team and you got the skills, you got the chops to help, then yeah, check it out.
Yeah, definitely. I was in Singapore for Token 2 weeks ago, and Convouds, they only hire Chads. I was there, I witnessed it. I think Darren was there as well that day. Sanctum has a really lovely office in the heart of Singapore. And yeah, all I saw was Chads walking in, and I'm like, dude, you here to see me? They're like, no, I work for Sanctum. I'm like, what? So it's an amazing team. So keep up the good work and yeah, get some more Chads in there.